tell you in ministerial school is essentially you give the talk that you need to hear. It's a great way to flesh out something that's coming up in your life and maybe share that with everybody and hopefully come to a deeper level of understanding. I don't know that there's ever any one answer, but just to have the exploration and to see what it means for each of us. That's what we do on Sunday mornings, and that is a co-creative process with all of us. So join in with me and let's have some fun. And I'm talking about that idea of being present. And what that word points to is deepening our awareness of the presence. Well, the presence is one of the great many words that we have for God. But the word presence to me evokes so much more than God can. I think God can be a limiting word because of our past and our histories. Whereas when we use something like presence, that's open to so many different ways of looking at this thing that we call life. And so it calls to me what I once heard described God as is an idea. It's a principle in action. And I love that because what that points to is we are that principle. It is alive and well and in and through us, right as we are, right where we are. It's not something that we have to bow down to, that we have to confess in order to be worthy of. It simply already is. It is within us. It is the idea of life expressing through us. The other thing that this idea and this word presence to me calls to is what I like to call the big O's. And usually in this teaching, sometimes right in the Beyond Beliefs class or the Foundation class, you hear these three really complex sounding words. Omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence. Now, I remember the first time I heard those, and frankly, I felt a little intimidated. Massive, massive words. But here's really what they mean. Let's boil it down, and let's look at, okay, great big words. What's that doing for me? So, omniscience. God is present. It's all-knowing. Omnipresence. It's everywhere. And omnipotence. It's all-powerful. Well, if it's everywhere, everything, every time, what that says is there's not a space where this presence is not. There's not some little pocket deep in what you believe is the dark corner of your soul where God has left the building. It's there too. It is this idea bearing fruit as you. And so I guess that's the most important takeaway for me, is there's nothing outside of ourselves that we are separate from and apart from. Each face here is unique, it's divine, it's perfect, and it is an embodiment of that presence. And Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of this teaching, has a wonderful quote that really takes this idea home. And it is a little long, but I want to share it with you because it is so powerful. And this is what he says. There is one infinite mind from which all things come. This mind is in, around, and through us. It is the only mind there is. And every time we think, we use it. There is one infinite spirit. And every time we say, I am, we proclaim it. There's one infinite substance. And every time we move in it. There is one limitless life. Talk, act, live, and believe, and know that you are a center of this one. All the power there is, all the presence there is, all the love there is, all the peace there is, and all the good there is omnipresent. The infinite is in, through, and as everything. So there you go. I think that is the heart of this teaching, is that when we can fully immerse ourselves in the idea that all that we think, believe, dream, and create, we are doing that through that principle, that presence of God. We're acting upon it. We are becoming it. We are creating from it. And it is there for all of us. And the most amazing thing about that idea is there's nothing we have to do except accept it. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to merit it. Simply by allowing it to be in our lives, it works for us by working through us, because it is us. And so the other idea is, if there is only presence, how do we become present and aware of that in each and every moment? And I think the biggie, and I know we've all heard this before, but if you're anything like me, it bears repeating. Can we be present to this moment? Can we immerse ourselves right here and right now? Now, I'm going to be really honest and tell you that for me, this is a challenge. And those of you that know me well, and those of you that probably don't know me too well, can still guess that I'm something of a planner. And I like to be aware and have a good grip on what I'm doing next. And I'm not just talking about after service today, or next week, or next month. I've got plans for next year. That's how I am. And, there's something to be said about that, but I think we need to be honest. It's also about control. And I'm going to save that for my next talk. We'll dig into that. It needs a talk of its own. There's a lot of meat there. But here's what happens. That's my comfort zone. So when I'm feeling just a little bit off kilter, what's my tendency? It's to fall back into those old patterns. And what do those old patterns do? They pull me right out of this present moment. And I'll tell you, do you know where that became so clear to me? So when I learned to ski. Because imagine this, I'm up there, gorgeous, gorgeous day, blue sky, white, powder snow, the trees that are so brown and so green. And you know what I'm doing? I'm thinking about what I'm going to do when I get back into Reno. What a waste. But that's how we miss out on each moment and the opportunity that is waiting for us to see it and to receive it in each moment. The presence, that creative goodness that is life, it's there in each moment. But not if we can't see it. It's almost that we've just passed it by. And it's not just about skiing. I think to bring this home, we have to ask the question of, are we present when we're with our loved ones, when with our friends, in any conversation? Now, this appears to be a day for confession, so I'll just continue on and say that I am the consummate multitasker. That's where you think you can have a conversation and also beep up around and do your chores and do your dishes. And I think that's partly the curse of this modern age, is we really truly believe to be, worthy or valued, that we have to be productive. We have to be busy. And so we have this great word, multitask. Like, that's something to be proud of. And women are supposed to be the better multitaskers. I think, again, that's more of a curse. And I'm playing with this idea because it's taken a shift for me to let go of that need to be busy, I've realized that, you know what multitasking really means? It means doing several things in a mediocre way, all at once. Whereas if we stopped and we became present and we focused on the one, we do it very well. Because it would have our attention, it would have our spirit, it would have our heart focused on it, and it would blossom. And again, this is in all parts of our lives. It's in our conversations. It's allowing that presence that is God to show up. And here's the thing. When we're willing to show up, when we're willing to be vulnerable, something almost mystical happens. We create the space for someone else to show up. It's as if they're safe, and we're welcoming their soul. And so again, I ask those questions. Are we creating that space where we're calling for the divine to show up? And although that presence is all around us, it is us, it's through us, it's in us, it's as us, I kind of think it's a little shy. It wants to be called forth. It wants to be welcomed. And if we're keeping ourselves busy, can we hear the knock? If the TV is on, if music is on, if there's just background noise of any kind, if we're running around being busy, where's the stillness? Because it is into the stillness that still, soft voice of the divine speaks. It speaks in our hearts. It speaks in that knowing. It speaks in that gut feeling, which maybe isn't always pleasant, but it's true and it's real. And so I think that's the question. Are we afraid? Are we afraid of what we think we'll hear if we slow down and listen? Well, what I know is when we listen, what we hear is love. We hear that presence of life calling us. So back to this idea of being present. One of the things that will bring us present to each moment so clearly is appreciation. It's finding anything in whatever's going around that we can look at and find value in. It's finding beauty even where we at first think there is none. And what I know is when we look deeply enough, regardless of the appearance of the situation, regardless of our feelings about it, there is beauty there because there's presence there. So I want to share a story that illustrates this point. I met a woman once for a conversation, and I did not know her. And as I sat listening to her talk, I watched her face. And as she spoke, it appeared as if right before my very eyes, her face kept changing. One moment it would be so beautiful. And the next, quite frankly, it was rather ugly. And back and forth it would go. Beautiful, ugly, beautiful, ugly. What I realized was that when I was coming from the place, from that space of being able to see beauty, I saw beauty. I saw her divine nature. I saw her soul. And a soul can't help but be beautiful. But when I went right back into my mind, that's when I saw the plainness. And afterwards, this really impacted me because it made me question everything that I see. And every time I can't see beauty. And what I realized was, it didn't have anything to do with her at all. It wasn't about her at all. Because she could only look how I could see her. And so, if I'm not open to seeing beauty, if I'm not open to appreciation, if I'm not open to the presence of the divine, I'm blind to it. And so what I know for each of us is that we do have the eyes to see. We have the heart to feel. We have the ability always to open up to that goodness that is the presence of life, that is all that we choose to make out of it. And so, this coming week, I invite each of you to find beauty where you've never seen it before, to cultivate the presence of the divine within you, and let it give you new eyes. Namaste. And so I'd like to invite our practitioners and ministers to stand, and we will encircle this room in a prayer of love. So join with me as we truly and deeply open our hearts to the presence within, that presence that is all around and is this thing that we call life. And as we open, I know that we lay down anything that no longer serves, any old ideas of smallness. And as we breathe in the goodness of life that is always around us. All we do is open our hearts and our minds and our hands and our eyes to say yes to every possibility that life lays before us. And so I know for each of us that this is a time of deepening, a time of a greater awareness of the beauty that lies all around us, and that we open our eyes to truly see. We open our hearts to feel, and we open our minds to envision a new world in which we are constantly immersed in an awareness of the presence of life, understanding that every breath, every thought, every action is a thought into the divine, and that each of these is a creation. We are always creating. And so I know for each of us that we create from a place of beauty, appreciation, and awareness of the sacredness in each moment. And so I let my heart fill with gratitude. So grateful that there is God, there is beauty, there is life all around, and we are it. And so in this heart full of gratitude, I let go, I let God, and I let it be. And I invite you to join me in saying, and so it is.